All right, today we are going to show you how to install the Redarc Tow-Pro Liberty series brake controller. It's one of the best brake controlling systems on the market. We're just going to show you how it's done. All right, so we're going to start by unboxing this to see what comes in the package. It is relatively simple here. You've got the actual controller unit that sits underneath of the dash somewhere. And then this looks like a little bit of an adapter. And this is how small the actual toggle that's going to be visible inside the car is. Most people are used to a system that has a big honking thing right here sitting at their knees, and anytime you get in or out of your vehicle or you're trying to adjust your seat, you bump that brake controller because it's all sitting out in the open. This makes it so you can take everything and put it inside, hidden, and then this becomes the only thing that's visible inside the unit, and it goes on one of these blank plates. So that's what we're going to do. It also comes with a little bit of a cable here. I'm not sure whether we need that one, but I did get the exact matching part for my vehicle. And the nice thing about Hondas is I guess they build them so that they are plug and play. So this allows us to do that. So right now what I'm doing is fishing my hand up through the back plate area of this dash panel to try to find the actual removable plate so we can pop it out and insert our brake controller hardware. All right, there we go. So the next step is we're going to look at both of our wires. We're going to see what type of plug they have down here for their adapter for the brake controller, and we're going to match it up to our adapter. We may quickly just reference their guide, because sometimes, depending on whether this was actually listed as the pilot, we'll reference their guide so that we're not unplugging anything we don't need to unplug. Hey, welcome to Camp Discomfort. We're here to install this brake controller, and I'm going to show you some of the components before we start putting them back where they go. Essentially, this is the brake controller module. Here is your adapter cable that goes from your vehicle's port to the brake controller itself. And then this is what looks to be something similar to like an Ethernet style cable that'll go from the actual brake controller to your actual control module, where you're able to turn that dial to adjust the sensitivity of your brakes. So we're going to show you where we're plugging this into. So here we are underneath the vehicle. I am going to show you kind of here where you see this plug, this guy right here. This is our adapter into the brake wiring harness. And so what we're going to do is we're going to plug the one end of our adapter into that plug, and then we're going to plug the other end into our brake controller. And this is the actual part piece that's going to plug and fit right onto that plug. We are definitely going to have to coil up and probably zip tie some of these wires, just because they gave you ample length to be able to adjust for different placement within the vehicle. But they're definitely going to want to make sure these are kept out of the way, as you've got your parking brake and then all your pedals down here. So you want to make sure those are kept nice tidily up and out of the way. So the next phase of it that we're going to connect is this cable here. And I think what we're going to do is actually connect the straight end of this cable, because the curved end is pretty nicely shaped to allow it to go into that back plate area up there. And then if there's any obstruction behind your panel, behind your dash panel, you can send the wire directly downward towards your controller device. And that's where we'll have our wire out there. While we've got that guy out there, what we want to do is, before we tuck and tidy anything away, we want to test for functionality before we button anything up. That way we're not frustrated if we go and tuck everything nice and tidy away and then find a problem. So what we want to do with this is clear out enough space in the rear side of this blank plug to remove these areas and allow for that mechanism to punch through on the face of this blank plate. So we're going to take our multi-tool. We have a fairly fine tooth blade, although I'd recommend either a rotary Dremel or a metal blade for an oscillating saw. We've gotten all the way down on both exterior right and left hand sides. This is labeled as the up. We're going to cut now this apart so we can hopefully split and crack those pieces out. Okay, so we're finished modifying the back of this. We've taken all the little support ribs out. It's a little bit of a rough job. If your vehicle is one of the standard ones that Redarc supports, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll send along another plate for you to just insert their Tow-Pro system into that plate rather than having to modify one of your original blank plates. So while this isn't the best possible outcome, a lot of times if your vehicle isn't one of those common truck type vehicles, you'll have to do something like this. Okay, and after you're done milling out those support ribs, what we're going to go on to next is the template for the front. We're going to pre-drill with a wood bit through this plastic for that bezel and for our actual fixture to go through and then tighten onto. And there's the details of what bit size you need for the top small section. You need a 1/8, and then for the main hole for the knob, it's going to be a 3/8. Okay, so what we're going to do is, because they don't seem to have a template in there that works for what we're doing, we're going to use this bezel, since this is what's going to be actually applied to the face of our blank plate, as our template. So we put our template somewhat centered on there. We've measured our plate to know that it is 1 inch exactly. So if you want to make a mark on a 1/2 inch that centers up with your first mark and then centers out your second mark, we can then line our bezel up accordingly, get it centered top to bottom, and then we take a pencil, mechanical preferably, and then we trace the inside of that, make sure that we get a mark right to the dead center of our bezel, and then we also make a mark in that spot as well. Then we'll take our stencil off and prepare for drilling. We're going to pre-drill this with our wing bit. Okay, so we're going to test our fitment to make sure that the original hole is going to function for what we want to as far as spacing. So we're going to set this through there. And it looks like we have enough room in the back that that hole is going to allow us to fit our piece in without any impediment from any of the other clips. So we'll continue to make our top hole now that we know that that's going to fit. We'll swap over to our 1/8 inch bit. You'll want to make sure that you have a pretty good and sharp one. This one may or may not be the best, but we're going to use it. Make sure you've found your designated placement. So we're going to slot this in where we've pre-drilled in the back of our plate, get it all centered up, and then we're going to take our bezel and our nut, and we're going to place that over the top of our pre-drilled hole. Get those lined up, thread it on, make sure our bezel stays where we intend it to be. Okay. So what we did is, once we've got that part set back through our hole, we put the bezel on, we line it up with our little light behind there, tighten the nut on. We used just a little adjustable wrench to just make sure it's snugged, that it's going to be, tight fitting to our blank plate. And then we take this, make sure that it is turned to the factory recommended location, and then we put our little dial on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this to the recommended location, all the way to the left, all the way counterclockwise. We're going to line it up, our little dial up with the factory recommended level mark. The 0 is going to go at the top, and we're going to press it down and on. And that gives you the 10 settings for your knob. Now we're going to put it in the truck. There we go. All right, then we're going to take our pre-manufactured little blank plate that we put together. line it up with our little cord, plug it in, make sure it's clipped. And this part, usually we test before we put it back in, but we can at this point push our blank plate back in. And from there, that'll be what it looks like at the finished project. Isn't that a lot nicer than having a knee knocker down below? Love it. All right, so now we're gonna test it and see if it works. Here we go, moment of truth. There we go, we got the blue light, that means it's working. So we just, you know, twist this. This is something that you do once you connect your trailer, which we don't have a trailer hooked up to it right now. You'd start driving and you would just kind of start to feel it out, you know, and set the sensitivity to once it starts feeling like the brakes on the trailer are matching the sensitivity of the brakes on the vehicle. You don't want the brakes on the trailer to be working harder than the brakes on the vehicle, and vice versa, because you could wear out one or the other too quickly because they're not even. So that's basically it. If you have a Honda, it's going to be a very similar installation to this. This is a Honda Pilot. But if you don't, just look online for the instructions for your particular vehicle. And a lot of times there's custom adapters for exactly the type of vehicle that you have. If you have a truck, chances are they're going to make a plate that matches your vehicle as well. Mine was not a truck, so I had to kind of jerry-rig my own blank plate, but it turned out spectacularly, and I couldn't be more thrilled.